proverbial frog in the well that sees an outside world through a circular window, beyond which is nothing more than the empyrean sky, albeit a sky that changes colors every now and then. The beauty of nature, with its abundance, remains unknown and therefore unappreciated. It is only when the frog makes an effort to jump out of its self-imposed stupor, out of its dark well, that it will be able to see the wide world around. And brethren, seeing is only the first step. It has to touch, it has to examine, it has to question, it has to understand, and most importantly, appreciate the rest of God's mighty creation. In like manner, brethren, we have to look beyond the craft. The craft, my brethren, as you're well aware, is the foundation of the entire Masonic structure. We have the usual 3 degrees, which is common across all Grand Lodges. The entered apprentice, fellow craft, and master mason. In a nutshell, initiation is about a new birth in masonry. Passing is guidance for us to explore the hidden mysteries of nature and science with the use of our liberal arts and sciences. As just an initiation is a birth, passing could be considered your adulthood. And then the final degree is, of course, to remind us of our inevitable destiny, the immortality of the soul. To understand but not fear death, because we know that it's just another phase in our life. So this is something akin to our coming to the end of our mortal existence here, so that we may, in due time, be received into the enveloping hands of the Almighty. So let us now look at how in the craft, there are some hints given to us. Now, there are some many unanswered questions which come about. Of course, the most important is when the genuine secrets are lost with the untimely death of a master Hiram Abif, you're not told where they are available. The craft doesn't address that. It leaves that question hanging in the air. So this is for a thinking Mason to start, delving further and further into it. And in the craft ritual itself, there are subtle hints left all over the place. Suddenly they use the word companion. All along they were using the word brother. You're also exhorted not to attempt to extort the secrets of a higher degree. All sorts of things that they all do. So the thinking Mason will realize that the story doesn't end with the 3rd degree. There is something beyond that, which is beyond the craft degrees. Then you're also told, my brethren, that Freemasonry is something which is peculiar with many degrees. And each degree has some specific secrets which are not communicated indiscriminately, but are conferred according to merit and abilities. So all these hints are given to you. So we need to now look at it from that perspective and see what is available and how do we get access to what which is available. So I've tried to use a chart. The chart is very, very commonly used, but we have made some small changes in the chart here for the purpose of this program. We have introduced some of the elements which are missing, and we have tried to make it a little more descriptive. I shall be constantly referring to this chart throughout this particular presentation. Now, some of these degrees are available in some parts of the world, some not necessarily so elsewhere. So, be that as it may, I shall give you a broad picture. The first thing is, you will see bottom, the craft is the foundation. Nothing can happen unless you have completed the first 3 degrees, which are, as I mentioned, the craft degrees. And thereafter, you have a possibility of taking any branch. As you can see from the bottom, there are several branches available. There are 7 branches you can take as a first step. So let us talk about the first category. The first category, my brethren, is for those who have only completed the craft. That is, they've finished the Master Mason's degree, and what next? So you can take the path of the Mark degree, or you can take the path of the Secret Monitor degree, or you can take the path of the August Order of Light, or the Holy Royal Art Chapter, or the Ancient and Accepted Rite, the Royal Order of Scotland, or the Societas Rosicruciana and Anglia, which is the SRIA. The basic qualification for all these paths is that completion of a Master Mason's degree. So let us now proceed to the first of the lot, which is the Mark degree. Okay. The natural first step to take by any Master Mason is historically what fits in the sixth degree of the King Solomon's Temple, and nothing could be more specific than the Mark degree itself, because it's concerned with the preparation of the stones and the timber for the building of King Solomon's Temple. Originally, this degree had two sub-degrees, the Mark Mason and the Mark Master Mason, and they were conducted separately. But now they have been combined, and the original requirement was that it was an extension of the Fellowcraft degree. So it used to be done after the Fellowcraft degree. But over a period of time, Mark Mason and Mark Master Mason have been combined into one. And they also added an additional provision that you have to be a Master Mason in order to get advanced at the Mark Mason. The lesson of this degree is, of course, the admonition to do one's duty to the best of one's ability without expectation of any reward, with an infinite faith in the Almighty that sooner or later, such dedication will be recognized and rewarded, even if the path to this redemption may be strewn with many mishaps. A further lesson in the virtue of humility is also imparted in this degree. The next we shall proceed is to the Holy Royal Art chapter. My brethren, the Holy Royal Art chapter is considered to be the completion of the third degree, as it deals with the propitious discovery of the profound secrets that were lost, as I mentioned earlier, in the third degree of the craft, due to the untimely death of our master Hiram Abiff. Thus, one needs to be a Master Mason to be eligible to join this order. The lessons of the earlier three craft degrees are completed only in this degree, with an introduction into some of the more eternal truths of the deity. This is one of those sublime degrees in Masonry, which brings you, through its lectures and its ritual, closer and closer to the deity. Brethren, if done well, this is probably one of the most beautiful rituals you can imagine. And the next degree is, of course, the Order of the Secret Monitor. The Grand Conclave of the Order of the Secret Monitor in India, which was headquartered in Chennai, was consecrated on 14th December 2013 by our parent Grand Council of England. Most worthy brother Michael Guest was there for that purpose. In this order, a brother is supposed to be inducted into the order in the first degree, and after making sufficient progress, he gets to be admitted as a prince of the order in the second degree. This order celebrates the most fundamental tenet of our fraternity, which is brotherhood. No other order in Masonry gives so much emphasis to the concept of brotherhood, which all of us live by and hope to emulate in our daily lives. The emphasis on the unshakable bond between brethren distinguishes this order from the rest, and it is conveyed through a ritualistic enactment of the story of the two biblical characters, David and Jonathan. I'm very happy to inform you that the head of the order in India, most worthy brother, Captain Dr. Balaram Vishwakumar, is present with us. Thank you for being here, Doctor. The next is, of course, the Ancient and Accepted Rite. The Supreme Council of India, 33rd degree, of the Ancient and Accepted Rite, which is a sovereign body for India, was consecrated at Mumbai in September 2005 by our parent Supreme Council of England. The first Sovereign Grand Master was most puissant brother Dilip Udeshi, a former Grand Master of India. The current head of the order is also a former Grand Master of India, most puissant brother, Justice Devendra Gupta. Now, this order provides answers to some of the missing puzzles in the entire Masonic story. Each of the degrees here, and there are 33 of them, have moral lessons which are profound and timeless. The AAR, as it's known in India, or ASR, Scottish Ancient Acts of Scottish Rite, as it's known in America, is one of the two concordant bodies of masonry in which a master mason may proceed after completing his 3 degrees of craft masonry. The first 3 degrees of the craft are normally not done by the ancient and accepted rite because of agreement arranged between them and the Grand Lodges. The rite only proceeds from the 4th degree onwards, and the master mason may proceed progressively to attain the 32nd degree in the thing. A word of caution, brethren, the 32nd degree in this rite does not in any way imply that you're a high-ranking mason. It only indicates the level of knowledge that a master mason has attained. It's the breadth of knowledge. It's not a height in hierarchy. That's something we have to keep in mind. And the governing body of this is known as the Supreme Council, which consists of 9 members at any point in time, and no more, no less. The most puissant brother, Justice Devendra Gupta, whom I mentioned, is the Sovereign Grand Commander, who is the primus inter pares among these 9. The next is, of course, the August Order of Light. This, my dear brethren, was one of the few orders which originated in India, specifically at Port Blair in the Andamans in the 19th century. Brother Maurice Vidal Portman is the founder of this order. It's based on a seamless combination of Hinduism, ancient Egyptian philosophy, and the Kabbalah, all linked with an esoteric view of Masonry. The order is open to all Master Masons of recognized Grand Lodges and not restricted to candidates of any particular religion or faith. The fundamental unit in this order is known as a Garuda Temple, of which there are 7 throughout the world, with Garuda Temple number 6 being in Chennai. The order is governed jointly by the equivalent of 2 Grand Masters who are known as Arch Presidents. I'm happy to inform you that one of the Arch Presidents, most worshipful brother, Michael Bottomley, is with us. Thank you, Michael. The candidates are required to write at least 2 Masonic papers on some esoteric subject for admission into the order. And there are 3 degrees in this order. The next, please. The Royal Order of Scotland is, as the name implies, from Scotland. The Grand Lodge and the Provincial Grand Lodges belong to that. They confer 2 degrees, namely the Herodom of Kilwinning and the Knight of the Rosy Cross. The ceremonies are usually learnt and rehearsed without scripts, and they include a considerable amount of rhyming verse. The origin of this order can be taken to the reign of King David I in the 12th century for the first of the degree, which is the Herodom of Kilwinning. The 2nd degree, Rosy Cross degree, originates in 1314, following the Battle of Bannockburn, which you would have all heard about, where William Wallace fought that famous battle. The word royal is in deference to Robert the Bruce. The next one is Master Masons. The requirement for this is the Master Mason who should be of 5 years standing and who has to profess the Christian Trinitarian faith. These are the prerequisites for membership in this order. The last of the first category is the SRIA, the Societas Rosicruciana in Anglia. This is an esoteric Masonic order, which is formed by Robert Wentworth Little in 1865. All aspirants for membership must be subscribing Master Masons and also profess a belief in the fundamental principles of the Trinitarian Christian faith. The order is further subdivided into 3 suborders, each of which has several grades in its own. The first order has 4 grades, the second order has 3 grades, and the third order has 2 grades. And brethren, as a matter of interest, in the year 1888, 3 members of the SRI formed another order known as the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which has its own checkered history. We shall now proceed to the category number 2. This requires membership. Apart from the craft, it also requires membership in the mark. And under this category, we have, you see that as the cursor moves along, you will see that particular line of progression, the mark to the Royal Fraternity of Royal Ark Mariners. So I shall now talk about the Royal Ark Mariners. The ancient and honorable fraternity of Royal Ark Mariners contains a short but very meaningful degree which uses the story of Noah and his ark as an allegorical tale to convey some moral lessons. In this degree, the candidate is elevated to the rank of a Royal Ark Mariner because he is deemed fit enough to be chosen by God himself to be saved from the oncoming deluge by being taken into the safety of the ark. The candidate for this degree must be a Mark Master Mason. And in this order, the RAM lodges, which are the daughter units, are said to be moored to an existing Mark lodge in accordance with ancient practice. And the RAM lodges have the same number, but not necessarily the same name as the Mark lodges. Now we come to category 3, which require a membership apart from the craft in the order of the Sacred Monitor. Under this category, you will see the cursor coming up, the order of the Secret Monitor leading up to the order of the Scarlet Cord. I shall now speak about the order of the Scarlet Cord. We have with us the head of the order, most distinguished companion Ian Stanley Currens, most distinguished the Grand Sumus. Thank you for being with us, Ian. The ancient and Masonic order of the Scarlet Cord was originally an appendant order of the Secret Monitor. It was spun off as an independent order on the 21st of June 2010, and I had the privilege to witness that particular glorious ceremony. There are 6 grades in this order, and each of the grades is based on a beautiful episode taken from the Holy Bible. The story of King Solomon's ancestors serves as the template for these grades. And a matter of interest, when the order was in its original form in India, I'm talking about a century ago, the Maharajas, many of the Maharajas of India were members of the order, including the Maharaja of Cooch Behar and others. And there are lovely photographs of them in their finery with the jewels of the order. So I thought I should just share that little bit of tidbit with you. The next category is a category number 4, which requires a membership in the SRIA. If you go to the chart, you will see on the extreme left, the SRIA, and that leads to the next order, which is the Royal Order of Erie. I should speak about the Royal Order of Erie now. Rather than this remote order is said to be derived from a very ancient order in Ireland, consisting of Freemasons and said to have been erected and patronized by the ancient kings of Ireland. This order possessed 2 psalters, the major and the minor. The major psalter is basically the rituals of the degrees. The minor psalter comprises the laws and rules of the order. The degrees embodied in the order are man-at-arms, esquire, knight, knight commander, and grand cross. The order went into abeyance in the second half of the 19th century. It was revived sometime the turn of the 20th century. The degrees are conferred upon members of the SRIA who are of 6th degree and above, and they're invited to do so. The next category is category number 5, which requires membership apart from the craft in the Holy Royal Arch chapter. This comprises a vast body. You have, starting with the Red Cross of Constantine, the Order of the Knights Templar and the Knights Malta, the Order of Athelstan, and the Masonic Order of Pilgrim Preceptors. Let us proceed to the Red Cross of Constantine. The Masonic and military order of the Red Cross of Constantine and the appendant orders of the Holy Sepulchre and of St. John the Evangelist is a Christian fraternal order of Freemasonry. Candidates must be members of the craft and Royal Arch. They must also be members of the Christian religion and proclaim their faith in the Christian doctrine of the Holy Trinity. It is said that the conversion of Constantine, the Roman emperor, began one evening after a long day's march, and he believed he saw a sign from heaven, a pillar of light in the form of a cross. So that was the beginning of the story on which this particular order is based. I won't labor that much more on that. This order has two parts. The first ceremony consists of the candidate's admission, his obligation, and then installation as a knight companion of the Red Cross of Constantine. Then in the third degree, we have the appendant orders, a total of 5 degrees in that. So that installation of a Knight of the Red Cross of Constantine is admission to the order's first degree. And thereafter we have 2 other degrees, both Christian in character. And these are all under the control of the Grand Imperial Conclave of the order. The current head of the order is Most Illustrious Knight Graham Flight from Mark Mason's Hall. The order has a marginal presence in India. The other orders so far, except for the SRIA, they have a presence in India. Then coming to the next order, which is Knights Templar and Knights of Malta. The full name of this order is the United Religious, Military and Masonic Orders of the Temple and of St. John of Jerusalem, Palestine, Rhodes and Malta, of England and Wales and its provinces overseas. The word united in its title indicates that there's more than one historical tradition and more than one actual order are jointly controlled within the system. The individual orders united within the system are principally the Knights of the Temple, Knights Templar, the Knights of Malta, Knights of St. Paul, and when reference to the York Rite, the Knights of the Red Cross. As you know, this Templars order was founded in the year 1118 AD to protect pilgrims heading for Jerusalem and other Christian holy places. And a small band of warrior monks established their headquarters. In the year 1118 AD, King Baldwin II granted the Templars quarters in the Temple Mount, and this forms the link with the Royal Arch. There's much has been written about it, much has been much fanciful, much little reality. But the fact remains that the earliest reference to modern Masonic Knight Templar activity in England can be found in the minutes of the Chapter of Friendship, the Royal Arch chapter in Portsmouth, dated 1778, where it was worked as an appendant degree. Brethren, this ceremony is very realistic. Regalia is spectacular. It's based upon that which was worn by the medieval knights. It's a beautiful historical background. And all I can say is, if you're a member of it, you're a fortunate soul. The appendant order to this is, of course, the Knights of Malta. And this is conferred on those who have already become Knights Templar. And again, this has got a nice ceremony attached to it. The regalia for a Knight of Malta is quite different from that of the Knights Templar. And even the titles of the offices they hold is quite different. This order has a large presence worldwide. The next, please. The Masonic Order of Athelstan. This order was founded in England in the year 2005 to encourage and prompt members to further study and conduct research into the early references of Masonry. Athelstan, who was the king of all the English, the grandson of Alfred the Great, it was during his time we had the York meet in 925 AD, the York Assembly 925-926. That is used as the framework for this order. The candidate in this order is said to be instructed into the order. The order had
comes together and then rain it pours.
Brethren, please mute yourself. Please do not distract the presentation. Kindly mute yourself. Thank you.
The order, candidate is said to be instructed into this order. It has only 1 degree, and there's a beautiful ceremony attached to it. The emphasis is on the symbolism of the craft, an expansion of the story of the first Grand Lodge formation in 1717, subsequent what happened after the next 100 years. This order has a a presence, started off, as I said, in England. It is now a presence across the world, in America, in South America, in Australia, and of course in India and in Europe. And the Masonic Order of Athelstan in India was constituted as a sovereign grand court on the 27th of October 2018 at Leicester. And I had the privilege of being installed as the Primus Grand Master by the Grand Master of England, Most Worshipful Brother Paul Johnston. We have a good presence in India right now, and it has grown quite well in the last 1.5 years. The appendant order to this Masonic Order of Athelstan is known as the Order of the Scarlet Mantle, which is based on the historic story of the young Athelstan being knighted by his grandfather, Alfred the Great. And it's the first recorded instance of a knighting ceremony in England. So the Scarlet Mantle is the appendant order. It's a reward order. It is maintained in its original structure in India. In England, it has undergone a name change. It is now called the Ancient and Masonic Order of Alfred the Great. Coming to the next order, which requires membership in the Holy Royal Arch, is the Masonic Order of Pilgrim Preceptors. Now, this particular order requires that you be an installed first principal in the Royal Arch before you can even be admitted as a member. And it is based on the story of how Freemasonry came from Jerusalem to England. There are 2 degrees. The first, candidate is admitted to the degree of pilgrim, which describes the journey of Freemasonry from Jerusalem to Rome. And the second degree is that of the preceptor, where he explains the journey from Rome to England. And the ethos and motto of the order is fraternity, equality, and liberty. It's a beautiful ceremonies encompassed in this thing. And we have with us the current head of the order, Most Worshipful Brother Jonathan Roberts. Welcome, Jonathan. The next category is category number 6, which requires a membership of Knights Templar. This has, as you can see at the very top, from membership Knights Templar, you go on to St. Thomas of Acon, Royal Arch Knight Templar priests, and of course the Knights Beneficial to the Holy City. So let's start off with the Holy Royal Arch Knight Templar priests, commonly known as the KTP. The full title is the Holy Royal Arch Knight Templars Priests of the Order of Holy Wisdom. And the origin of this is not really known with any great certainty. There are various conflicting claims from the 17th and 18th and 19th century. What I can say is it has a lot of obscurity in the origins, but we do know that it was worked under various names earlier, including the Order of Melchizedek, the Pillared Priest, White Mason, the Order of Holy Wisdom, Templar Ne Plus Ultra. In the 19th century, it became moribund and was revived in Newcastle, and they formed what is called a tabernacle. The tabernacle is the basic unit in this order. Just as there's lodges in craft masonry, it's tabernacle in the KTP. The candidates must be subscribing members of regular craft lodges, Royal Arch chapters, and Knight Templar preceptory and priories. The Order of the Holy Wisdom is appendant to this KTP order, which further expands on the teachings of the order, which is basically that you have to dedicate yourself in the service of the Lord. We come to the next, which is the commemorative order of St. Thomas of Acon. Rather, a little bit of history here. The Third Crusade in 1189 AD was on, and on 8th June 1191, King Richard I, Richard the Lionheart, arrived with his forces at the seaport of Acre, and he captured the city in about 5 weeks. While this was going on, along with him was one gentleman whose name was William. He was the chaplain to the Dean of St. Paul's. And when he saw the corpses of the Christians on the walls of Acre, he felt great compassion for them. With the aid of a few helpers, he buried a large number of the dead and tended the wounded. And from this is what he formed the order, to the express purpose of burying the Christian knights who fell in battle in the Holy Land. He later added one more purpose, which was to raise money to redeem ransomed captives captured by the Saracens. The order being formed in Acre, it was the name Acon was chosen, which is the anglicized version of Acre. And the Commemorative Order of St. Thomas of Acon is an independent British Christian Masonic organization. Mason membership is restricted to those who are subscribing members of a preceptory in amity with the Great Priory of England, and membership is by invitation only. The basic organization is called a chapel. The order is currently headed by Melvin Cross, whose official title is Most Worthy Grand Master Sir Melvin of Wood Plumpton. The order has no presence in India as of date. The next, of course, is a Knights Beneficent of the Holy City, commonly known as KBHC. It's also known as the Rectified Scottish Rite, and the full name is Order of Knights Beneficent of the Holy City, or Knights Benefactor of the Holy City. It's from the French Chevalier Bienfaisant de la Sainte Citizen. It's a Christian Masonic order which was founded in Lyon in France in 1778. And regular membership of the CBCS was traditionally restricted to literally just a handful of the most senior Knights Templar. However, in the year 2007, the Grand Priory of Belgium sanctioned England to work the degrees of the order, forming part of the Rectified Scottish Rite, more openly, but still quite restricted. The current head of the order is Most Eminent Reverend Knight Michael Edward Herbert, the order is administered from Mark Mason's Hall. And I forgot to mention, Knights Templar head is, of course, our Most Eminent Supreme Grand Master, Paul Raymond Clement, also another order administered from Mark Mason's Hall. The next category is Category 7, which requires membership in both the Mark and Holy Royal Art chapter, besides obviously the craft. Now let us go back to the chart and you will see that there are 4 branches here. The Order of the Royal and Select Masters, Order of Knight Masons, the Operatives, and of course the Order of the Allied Masonic Degrees. As far as the Royal and Select Masters is concerned, the Grand Council of the Order of Royal Select Masters in India was consecrated on 13th December 2013 at Chennai, and as a sovereign independent body. And there are 4 distinct degrees in this order. And this order is also sometimes referred to as the cryptic degrees. And the 4 are Select Master, Royal Master, Most Excellent Master, and Super Excellent Master. The above degrees bring to light some of the missing pieces of the Grand Masonic puzzle between the legend of the 3rd degree in the craft and the Holy Royal Art chapter. So these degrees are intervening between the craft and the Royal Art chapter. In addition to the above degrees, there is another special degree that is offered for very select companions. It's known as the Order of the Silver Travel. It is also known as the Order of the Anointed Kings, which originated in some of the American states and was subsequently made available to England in the summer of 2008 by means of a covenant and agreement. And similarly, England and India, we signed an agreement in 2018, thanks to the help given by Right Worshipful Brother Ryan Williams. I was the Grand Secretary of this order at that time, and I had the pleasure of receiving this agreement from Right Worshipful Ryan. The story is set in the innermost chambers of King David. I'm talking about this Order of Silver Travel. This story is set in the innermost chambers of King David. He calls for Solomon to meet him one last time so he can pass on to him his kingly knowledge. This is probably one of the more poignant rituals in Freemasonry. And I do pray that interested, dedicated members of the Royal and Select Masters will qualify themselves for this degree in due time. Next, I'm sorry to mention, I forgot to mention that the head of the order, both in England as well as in India, are with us today. In England, it's most illustrious companion, Keswick Jones. Thank you, Brother Keswick, for being with us. Brother Keswick was also there at the inauguration of this in India. And we also have the Indian head, most just companion, Stephen Hines. Thank you for being with us. Now we come to the Knight Masons. The Order of Knight Masons is a chivalric Masonic order which is open to all Master Masons who are also members of a Mark Lodge as well as a Royal Arch chapter. Members of the order meet in councils of Knight Masons, which are governed by the Grand Council of Knight Masons based in Dublin in Ireland. A member of this order is known as a Knight Mason. This order comprises 3 degrees: Knight of the Sword, Knight of the East, and Knight of the East and West. And the councils of Knight Masons are individually presided by an excellent chief, and the degrees are conferred separately upon the candidate. The degrees communicate the story of the efforts to build the Second Temple in Jerusalem. They complete the sequence of the universal Masonic degrees that are conferred within the Irish system. The current head of the order is Most Excellent Great Chief, Most Excellent Sir Knight Bernard Woods. We have a presence in India in Mumbai and Chennai. Next, we come to the Worshipful Society of Freemasons, Rough Masons, Wallers, Slaters, Paviers, Plasterers, and Bricklayers, also known as the Operatives, which is headquartered in England and is an invitational Masonic body dedicated to the preservation of the history and workings of the operative guild masonry. This is a Masonic body which is dedicated to that purpose. And as I said, it's open only to those who are Master Masons, Mark Master Masons, and Royal Arch companions in good standing. The society is governed by 3 Grand Master Masons collectively, known as the first, second, and third Grand Master Masons. And we have the pleasure of the company of the first Grand Master Mason today with us, Most Worshipful Brother Nigel Willows. Welcome, Nigel. There are 7 degrees in this society. The first is known as an Indentured Apprentice. The second is Fellow of the Craft. Third is Fitter and Marker. Fourth is the Setter Erector. Fifth is the Intendant, Overseer, Superintendent, and Warden. Sixth is the Past Master. Seventh is Master Mason and Grand Master Honoris Causa. The old charges and explanations are given in their original forms, but much of the work that has already been carried out in the speculative degrees is not repeated within this order. This order will help you greatly enhance the speculative Freemason's understanding of the ceremonials in which he has participated and of the rituals that he has learnt. The society has a significant presence in India with 13 assemblages, as the individual unit is called. And the Indian membership of this order has now reached about 8% of that in the entire world. The region of India was created to administer this society, and I have the privilege since 2013 of being the head of the region with the title of Deputy Grand Master Mason and Senior Past Master. We now come to finally the Allied Masonic degrees. Brethren, the vast majority of the additional degrees worked in England in the early part of the 19th century originally came under the patronage of warrants granted by the ancients, who held craft lodges, were entitled them to work any Masonic degree to which they had knowledge and members available who could work it. Upon the formation of the UGLE, various groups of degrees were gradually organized into separate orders, each with their own governing body. By the end of the century, a large number of unregulated degrees of no direct interest to any grand body were being still worked in different parts of the country. In the 1870s, it was agreed by the Grand Secretaries of that time of the Craft, Mark, and the Ancient and Accepted Right to establish a Grand Council for the Allied Masonic degrees in England and Wales and the colonies and dependencies of the British Crown. The headquarters was at Mark Mason's Hall. This body over time has continued to govern this disparate group of degrees under one single head, and now it's known as the Grand Council of the Order of the Allied Masonic Degrees of England and Wales and its districts and councils overseas. The current head is Most Worshipful Brother Thomas Ford Jackson, who we have the privilege of being with us today. Thank you, Most Worshipful Brother. And the Grand Secretary is Right Worshipful Brother Ryan Williams. Thank you once again, Ryan. Now, independent sovereign Grand Councils of the Masonic degrees exist not only in Great Britain, but in the United States, in Canada, in France, Australia, India, and Southeast Asia. And their members also educate each other by presenting research papers on Freemasonry. We have the Grand Master of the Grand Council of Allied Masonic Degrees of Southeast Asia, Most Worshipful Dr. Nirmal Singh with us. Thank you, Nirmal. As far as the Grand Council of the Order in India was concerned, it was consecrated on 13th December 2013 at Chennai. And I had the honor of being installed as a Most Worshipful Grand Master of the Order last year on 13th of December in 2019. And in the presence of Most Worthy Brother Andrew Sweeney, the Grand Supreme Ruler of England, and of course, Most Illustrious Companion Keswick Jones. Thank you for being with us that day. In England, and in India and in Southeast Asia, this order has 5 degrees, which are St. Lawrence the Martyr, Knights of Constantinople, the Grand Tylers of Solomon, the Red Cross of Babylon, and the Holy Order of the Grand High Priest. Every candidate must be a Mark Master Mason and a companion of the Holy Royal Arch. In former times, there were other degrees which were worked under the authority, but those have since been split. For example, the Holy Royal Arch Knight Templar Priest and the Order of Secret Monitor used to be part of the Allied Masonic degrees. They were later spun off as independent grand orders in their own right. Now let us look at each of the 5 remaining degrees within the order as far as India, England, and Southeast Asia is concerned. The first, of course, is the St. Lawrence the Martyr degree. This was designed to commemorate the martyrdom of St. Lawrence in Rome in the middle of the 3rd century AD. You see a picture here of St. Lawrence distributing alms. This degree teaches the lessons of fortitude and humility. The candidate in this degree is said to be introduced, received, and admitted as a brother of St. Lawrence. This simple but effective ceremony of the degree forcibly reminds us of the great Masonic virtues of charity and hospitality. And we are taught how to assist a brother in time of distress. The degree of St. Lawrence the Martyr is that in which all administrative business of a council of the order ought to be conducted. At every meeting of the council, a lodge of St. Lawrence the Martyr must be opened and closed. A lodge or council of any other of the 4 degrees is opened and closed only when the ceremony of that particular degree is to be worked. The master of a council is elected as such in a lodge of St. Lawrence the Martyr. Therefore, the only ceremony of installation now practiced in this order is that of a master of a lodge of St. Lawrence the Martyr, and he thereby constitutionally becomes master of the council. This is the first degree which one must take. Thereafter, you can take the other 4 degrees in any order. The second degree is the Knight of Constantinople. Here you see in the picture Emperor Constantine, and he is basically distributing something. He's giving something to his soldiers, and in back you can see the soldiers and workers beating their implements, which is an integral part of the ceremony. And in the sky is the imperial eagle. The degree of Knights of Constantinople is set in the courtyard of the palace of Emperor Constantine the Great in Constantinople during the 4th century AD. In its traditional form in England, this degree required the candidates to profess the Christian faith, which restriction was relaxed in 1910, except for 3 councils who were allowed to maintain the original restriction. Ever since then, otherwise duly qualified candidates of any faith were welcomed into the degree. A candidate in this degree is said to be admitted. This degree inculcates the useful lessons of humility and universal equality. It teaches us to hate arrogance and pride, to remember that those who occupy a lower station in life may have more intrinsic merit than ourselves, and above all, never to forget that he that exalteth himself shall be abased, but he that humbleth himself shall be exalted. The third degree of this order is the Grand Tylers of Solomon, also known as the Masons Elect of 27. This degree has a legend which is quite similar to the cryptic degree of Select Master. However, there are some interesting variations on the theme, particularly with respect to the period of the occurrences. It also has much in common with the degree of Masons Elect of 27, which was introduced to the New World by Moses Cohen. It also has much in common with the degree of Intimate Secretary, which is the sixth degree of the Ancient and Accepted Rite. This degree warns of the great danger of carelessness and hasty judgment. It also teaches the importance of careful tithing. And brethren, in these days of virtual meetings, this is something which we ought to be cognizant about, careful tithing. A candidate in this degree is said to be admitted into the degree of Masons Elect of 27 and created a Grand Tyler of Solomon. The fourth degree, my brethren, is the degree of the Red Cross of Babylon. The Red Cross of Babylon, as a picture here, you'll see Zerubbabel meeting King Darius and asking for permission. The Red Cross of Babylon is arguably the most profoundly mystical of all the Masonic degrees under this order. It's of considerable antiquity. It has 3 parts or points, and they're descended from the 3 of the degrees of the rites which were worked in the mid-18th century. The tragedy associated with the building of King Solomon's temple, described in the 3rd degree of the craft, had inspired the compilers of all those rites to include a series of degrees connected with the building, the 2nd temple, as an allegory of life. In each series, the scene is set partly in Babylon and partly in Jerusalem. And wherever the series begins or ends, there is in the middle a short but important episode of crossing a bridge over a river. In the great religions of the world, for example, Christianity, Confucianism, Hinduism, Islam, Judaism, Shintoism, and Zoroastrianism, there is a tradition that a soul has to cross the river of death, usually over a bridge, but sometimes by ferry, as in Greek mythology. Remember Sharon and the river Styx, or by dividing the waters as Elijah did before his translation. I now worked, the degree is in some respects similar to, but distinct and separate from the 15th, 16th, and 17th degrees of the Ancient and Accepted Rite, which do not include the Royal Arch, as in the Allied Masonic degrees. The degree of the Red Cross of Babylon teaches us to keep inviolate our Masonic secrets and to withstand all temptations to reveal them, however profitable those temptations may be. It emphasizes the importance of fidelity, integrity, and truth. Esoterically, it is symbolic of a passage of an upright man from struggles overcome in this world to well-earned honor in the next. The candidate upon completion in this degree is said to be constituted a Knight of the Illustrious Order of the Red Cross of Babylon. Finally, my brethren, we come to the 5th degree of this order, which is the Holy Order of the Grand High Priest. And here you see a picture of Melchizedek, who was not only a king, but also a high priest. This ancient ritual is one of the few in Masonry that has been designated as an order and not as a degree. The degree starts off with the blessing of Abram, the Mesopotamian immigrant, by Melchizedek, the Canaanite priest king, to the consecration 4 centuries later of Aaron the Levite as the first Jewish high priest. So this degree encompasses this transition. The order carries us to a very high realm of Masonic thought. The companion who is admitted to it is left in no doubt that he is set apart for high duties and responsibilities in life, both as a Mason and as a man. He is taught that to carry them out, he is called upon himself to dedicate himself to the service of the Most High God and also to that of his fellow man. The candidate in this degree is said to be admitted and anointed, consecrated, and set apart for the holy office of Grand High Priest. Brethren, the above 5 surviving degrees under this order, as practiced in India, offer much to the members and the candidates in terms of pageantry and substance. There are 23 councils now functioning throughout India that for administrative convenience have been placed in one of 3 districts: Southern India, North and East India, Western India. The Allied Masonic degrees as practiced in the United States of America and Canada are quite different from what is practiced in England and India. And I'm sure we will be exchanging notes on this in the years to come. And I'm happy to inform you that we have with us today the heads of the 3 districts, Right Worship Brother Rajiv Naik, who is the District Grand Prefect for Western India, Right Worship Brother S.T. Gautaman, the District Grand Prefect Designate for Southern India, and Right Worship Brother Satish Kapoor, District Grand Prefect Designate for North and East India. I welcome all of you, brethren. Now, brethren, I have to now call it a day because I think I kept you for more than an hour. Thank you for your patience and for your participation. And I wish you all God bless, stay safe, and hope to see each and every one of you in reality, in physical life, not too long from now. Let us together win this battle against the virus, and let us maintain the wonderful brotherhood of man under the fatherhood of God. Thank you, my brethren. God bless.
Thank you, Most Worshipful Brother Bharat Epur. Brethren, the virtual floor is open for questions. May I request you to use the hand up icon, or please use the chat to let the co-host know that if you have a question.
I'm very happy about it.
Okay,
But
we have a question
most
from Vivek Mishra.
Yeah. Right. Before Vivek starts, if you could, if most of the Thomas Jackson is there, if you would like to address as well, we'll be very happy to hear from him. And similarly with most worship brother Nirmal Singh, and of course the other heads of the order, most illustrious companion Keswick Jones, most illustrious companion Stephen Hines, most distinguished companion Ian Currens, most worthy brother Dr. Bishop Kumar, and most worshipful brother Michael Bottomley, and anybody else. If I missed out, I'm sorry, but the heads of the orders will be very happy to hear from you. Thank you.
Okay, most worshipful, can I now call on Vivek Mishra to ask his question? Vivek, please unmute yourself.
Good evening, most worshipful brother, for that wonderful and lucid presentation. I just have a doubt. Like, say, I am privileged to be part of most of the orders that are available or practiced in Chennai. But when should we tell Master Mason that you are ready to join the orders beyond craft? So that is the one thing what I just wanted to ask.
Good question, Brother Vivek. My answer for that would be, it depends on the individual brother. You have to gauge the capacity and interest of the brother. Some take to masonry like duck to water. Some need a little bit more time. I think you have to exercise judgment in that. And typically, I would suggest that once he becomes a master mason, let him attend a few more craft meetings to fully appreciate that when he's not the candidate, when he sees the similar ceremonies being done to others, let him learn to absorb that. And maybe a year or so later, start talking to him about the other wonderful opportunities available in masonry, and lead him, step by step. So I think maybe a year after his raising would be a good starting point. But again, it depends on the individual brother.
We have Worship Brother Joseph Rodrigues, who has a question for you, Most Worshipful.
Yes, Brother Joseph.
Joseph, please unmute yourself.
Which is among the orders you mentioned? Which are the any orders that are not in India at present?
Quite a few of them, Brother Joseph. St. Thomas of Acon, Pilgrim Preceptors, Holy Royal Arch Knight Templar Priest, the SRIA, and
Order of the Knight Masons?
Knight Masons is present in Bombay and Chennai. The other one, of course, Knight Beneficent of the Holy City. These are not present in India.
Okay.
Yeah, most of the other orders are.
Yeah. Thank you, Brother Bharat.
Yeah.
We have Madhavan Kunnat, who has a question, Most Worshipful.
Yes, Brother Madhavan.
Hello, Brother Bharat. I was
Yes,
wondering.
hello, brother.
Yeah. I know that to become any of the allied degrees or to be a part of the allied degrees, you need to be a Master Mason. But what are the criteria for becoming a Knights Templar? What are the prerequisites for becoming a Knights Templar?
Yeah, as I mentioned in the chart, to become a Knight Templar, you have to be a Holy Royal Arch member also apart from the craft.
That's all.
You'll be a subscriber.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to
In
be a
some of the
subscribing.
degrees, you are saying that we need to be a Christian or something like that.
That is, yes. If you're talking of a non-Masonic requirement, yes, you have to be a member of the Christian faith. Yes.
Okay.
There are certain degrees which require you to be a Christian.
But if you are a Master Mason, that is not.
The basic requirement for progression beyond the craft is that you have to complete the 3 degrees of the craft. Okay.
Okay.
And then there are various 7 branches you can take. So one of the branches is Royal Arch. So if you take the Royal Arch, then you qualify to be considered for Knight Templar, provided you are a Christian.
No, all right. Thank you. Thank you, Brother Bharat.
Yeah.
Brother CP Narayan has a question. Go ahead, Brother CP.
Yes, Brother CP.
Most Worshipful, why should we have so many orders and so many sub-orders? At some point, can it all be amalgamated?
It does get amalgamated in one's mind. But there are several lessons to be learned. There are beautiful stories to be told. And most important is that we have to keep the regalia manufacturers happy. So we need all these lovely orders. Now, that's on a lighter note. But more seriously, on a serious note, yes, there are lessons to be learned, virtues to be re-emphasized. And if you take it one step at a time, it's easier to learn. If everything is crammed in one shot, I don't think you'll get the flavor and full effect of that. So they say education is a lifetime experience. It never stops. Similarly, Masonry. Nobody can do all the degrees in one shot. It's not humanly possible. You take your individual path. By the way, the regalia requirement in this order is quite minimal. The Allied Masonic degrees is not very costly on your pocketbook. So I can say that one point, brownie point for us.
We have Worship Brother Ramachandram who'd like to ask you a question, Most Worshipful.
Yes, please.
Most Worshipful Bharat Epur, it is indeed a single source ready reckoner on most of these higher degrees in India. When I first joined in Freemasonry, I knew that there were 104 degrees, but I haven't ever gone beyond a couple of them. And this is the first time I came to know that there are so many orders, so many degrees available. Out of this presentation, whatever the information that you have given, how many of these are out of 104 or any more left out still?
Brother Ramchandram, I don't know where you got the figure 104, but when I was reading about it some time ago, I'm talking about 4 or 5 years ago, one of the Masonic scholars mentioned that at this point time, since beginning, there were more than 600 variations.
Wow.
So we have now got about maybe 200 plus. So there are enough and more to keep you occupied. So the number keeps changing. And as we speak, some Masonic scholars somewhere are inventing new things. As I told you, Masonic Order of Athelstan was created in 2005.
Yeah.
And it's been quite successful as a new order. So it's the learning process never stops. The fertile minds of thinking Masonic scholars are always at it. Finding new virtues to be taught, new moral lessons to be imparted.
Thank you, Bharat. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Worship Brother Dale Graham, who has a comment to make.
Yes, Brother Dale.
Yes, thank you very much for this excellent presentation. As I progressed over the years, I was invited and participated in different orders and degrees, and I found at some point I was unable to move forward until I understood the meaning of what was happening around me. Going through ritual doesn't impart a deeper resonance, an understanding, and I found that I slowed down in order to read, in order to do the research so that I could understand. From your perspective, could you? I'm comfortable that I'm not alone in this type of concern. Would you offer some advice, whatever that might be from your position?
Brother Dale, on a personal understanding of this is what I've gathered in my Masonic experience. See, when you're a candidate and when the ceremony or ritual is being done to you, you get a certain input, certain understanding of it, which is probably quite incomplete because you're being exposed to it for the first time. And then you may be uncomfortable, especially in the craft when you're an entered apprentice candidate. You are kind of in a shock as it is. So you may not get the full flavor in that first instance. But when you see it being done repeatedly to other candidates as a witness, you get a little more insight into what's being done. And at some point in time, when a senior Mason approaches you and asks you, would you like to give a charge? And you say, yeah, you see that opportunity is, yes, I would like to do. Let me start off with the simplest one, a working tools explanation. So you go home excited and you start learning that particular 2 paragraphs. And then you realize the moment you have mastered those 2 paragraphs, that the meaning which has come into you is a little more than what it was before you mastered those 2 paragraphs. So you have learned a little bit more. And when you deliver that at the next regular meeting to the new candidate, you get that little much more into your mind about what those 2 paragraphs mean. So, it's a process. It's not something which happens all of a sudden. It's a process which requires it. So I believe that you can read Masonic ritual just like a storybook, like, for example, the explanation of the tracing board. It's just like a storybook. You can read it even to some child. So that's one level. The second level is when you actually memorize that part and it excites that particular part of your brain and you absorb a little more of what's being mentioned there. And then the next stage is when you start understanding the symbolism which is implied more than the story. The basic symbolism which is trying to be imparted. That's the third level of understanding. And in my opinion, the ultimate level is the fourth level, which is when you start reading in between the lines. That is which has not been written. So in other words, you reach that speculative stage. So that you're now beginning to speculate in your own mind, what is trying to be imparted? What do they mean by this? Do they mean this? Do they mean that? Then you make your own individual judgment on that. I think that is the stage which we should all try to aim for. Being a speculative Mason. I hope I've answered your question, Dale.
Very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Most worshipful, we have Brother Jawahar from Lodge, Bangalore, who has a question for you.
Yes, Brother Jawahar.
Yeah, good evening, right worshipful brother. It's usually, as usual, very wonderful, presentation from you, and it's very enriching as usual. Thank you very much for that. I just wanted to know how these new degrees or orders are being created. Like you have this Athelstan, which is created in 2005. How do they go about creating this? What's a kind of who starts? How it goes about creating this new orders?
Brother Jawahar, there is no standard template for that. For example, 2005, when this Masonic Order Athelstan was created, it was created by certain senior Masons of a more cerebral kind who wanted to, kind of create a ritual marrying ancient British English history, specifically the period of Athelstan, from whom we trace the 925 York Assembly, from which came beginnings of the guild rules, including the ancient charges and regulations. They wanted to combine that with certain Masonic symbols, which used to be famous and popular 100 years ago, but in the last, say, 100 years, have lost some of their importance. Symbols like the beehive, the scythe, these were things which are very prominent in earlier Masonic ritual, but have in the recent past got of lesser prominence. So these Masonic scholars in England decided to sit down and see if they could come up with a ritual which would exemplify those beliefs and values. So that's how that came about. But if you see some other Masonic order, like the August Order of Light, which originated, as I said, in India in the mid-19th century, that particular order was a creation of one single person, Maurice Vidal Portman. Maurice Vidal Portman was sent down to India, and his job was at the Andaman. There was a set of islands in the middle of the Bay of Bengal. He was an Orientalist. He had earlier knowledge about India, and he was a keen Mason. And he was also quite well versed in the Kabbalah as well as in Egyptian esoteric knowledge. So when he came to India, the time was ripe for him to sit down and put all these elements together and create this August Order of Light. So he married all those influences. So it was a single person contribution. So the point I'm trying to make is there's no template. Things happen because of circumstances, because of the time they live in, and because of the individuals involved. Ultimately, it comes down to the individuals who are involved.
With so many learned, committed, and eminent scholars like you, are there any work in progress based on these stories and idihasas of India?
Not to my knowledge, but yes, there's been a talk about it, but nothing concrete has happened. Maybe one of these days, some of the Masonic scholars will come up with something interesting.
Okay.
I wouldn't put it past them.
Okay.
Most worshipful, we have many people requesting to ask questions. We have Brother Anil Agarwal. Anil Agarwal, please unmute yourself. Brother Anil, please unmute yourself. Anyway, we'll move on to the next person. We have Subbarao Tipurneni would like to ask you a question.
Yes, brother. Brother Subba.
Hi, brother. Hi, Bharat. Sorry, as I told you, my apologies. I joined this late because I just jumped off another meeting. So if my question has already been covered in your presentation, you know why it is. There is a general perception, especially in the city I am and in South in general, that some of these allied degrees, the ritual is not practiced with as much rigor as it is in the regular craft and maybe the mark and the Royal Arch. There isn't that amount of seriousness. It's more, just a few people get together, and you don't get that actual ambience of a Masonic learning. So is that true? And if not, could you enlighten on how things happen in some of these allied degrees?
Brother Subbarao, the question you raised has one possible answer, which is that the experience which you get depends on which ceremony you attended, which council you have attended. When I got my first degrees in the Allied Masonic, which was in the Raza of Rampur in Mumbai, it was one of the most brilliant ceremonies I've ever. That's why I got hooked onto this. And we had people like the late Kausi Marfatia. Many of the brethren from Mark Mason's Hall will recall him. And we had past Grandmaster Masureka giving the lecture. So that was an unforgettable experience. Similarly, when I was in the Royal and Select Masters candidate, the person who acted as PCW in the Royal Masters, in the Select Masters, Royal Masters, he was KP David. And I couldn't get a better ritualist than him. So I guess I was fortunate and lucky enough to have these good ritualists do the ceremony. But as you rightly mentioned, a good ritual is important to impress the candidate. If all you're going to do is read from the book, then you're looking at the book, not at the candidate. The candidate suffers for that. And I think that's a great disservice to the candidate. Personally, I believe, in a council, it may not be possible for the same person to know all the rituals. It would be ideal if you could have a dedicated group of people who can say, okay, we'll do this degree, and this, others will do this and this. It's possible. The master alone has to sit in the chair, but here, no. But other people, he can allocate work. So I wouldn't want to comment on what's happening in your town, but I think it's not advisable to go that route. One has to be serious, because it's something which you owe to the candidate. If you want to retain the candidate in the order for the rest of his life, we must make it as enjoyable and as unforgettable an experience as we possibly can.
Thank you.
You know, my first degree beyond the craft was Royal Arch. And you know who did my exaltation? It was Most Worshipful Brother Captain Dr. Balaram Vishwakumar. He was Zed. I was a candidate. I still remember that impact it made on me. Because of him, I was interested in the beyond degrees. It was a brilliant thing. Brethren, one point you must keep in mind, as I mentioned at the beginning of my lecture, please don't call these side degrees. There's nothing side about them. They are all profound degrees. The best name would be call them progressive orders, or superior degrees, or higher orders, whatever you wish to. But progressive orders would probably make a lot of sense. And eschew using the word side degrees. It's the most abhorrent name you can think of. There's nothing side about them. Thank you.
Most worshipful, we have my namesake, Brother Umashankar from Om Vigneshwara Lodge, who has a question. Brother, please unmute yourself first. Brother Umashankar? Okay, we'll move on to the next. Vikram, who's the next person who has a question?
It was Brother Suman Chakrabarti.
Yeah, go ahead, Brother Suman.
Thank you so much for such a very nice presentation, mesmerizing as always. Brother, I was just wondering if you could tell a little bit more about this August Order of Light and like the places where these lodges are operating and like how to be a member of that. Like, of course, I can understand that it's definitely not there in any part of Eastern India. So if there is any, like the places of Western India or Southern India where these lodges are operating, if you could give us some more light on that, please. Thank you.
Yeah, Brother Suman, the August Order of Light, the individual unit is known as a Garuda temple. And there are 7 Garuda temples in the world. The first 2 are in England, Halifax, and just outside London. The 3rd and 4th are in Australia. The 5th is in America. The 6th is in Chennai in India. And most recently, last October, November. And the 7th was consecrated in the Netherlands, just outside Amsterdam. There are only 7 such bodies in the world. And eligibility, you have to be a Master Mason. That's a basic eligibility. And you have to write 2 papers on esoteric subjects. Okay. And that will signal your ability to think and express yourself in some original thought.
And is this order like, where is this order governed from? I mean, is it like...
From England. From England. In fact, we have it's governed jointly by 2 Grand Masters. They're known as the Archpresidents. The senior Archpresident, Michael Bottomley, is with us today.
Thank you.
We have Brother Anil Agarwal again texting. Brother Anil, if you're online, please unmute yourself and ask your question. Brother Anil Agarwal. Okay, we have Jeff Gill who has a question. Go ahead, Brother Jeff Gill.
Yes, are you listening me?
Yes, Anil Agarwal.
Okay, thank you. My question is, when there is a equality in everywhere in Freemasonry, why in some superior degree only Christians are allowed? Why? What's the reason behind this? My question is this: why when you are only Christian, then you will attend that superior degrees?
Okay, Father Anil, can I answer now?
Yes, please.
Now, any association of persons, they set their own standards. They would like to associate with themselves. So I think we must respect that. So if these people would like to restrict themselves to a particular requirement, so be it. We should respect that, as simple as that. Why should we impose our views on them? And believe me, there are certain things, for example, the ancient and accepted rite in England requires you to be a Christian. But the Supreme Council of India, when it was formed in September 2005, by the Supreme Council of England, they were conscious of that fact, and they suggested that we make it universal in India. So if you want to become a member of the Supreme Council of India, the ancient and accepted rite, you no longer have to be a Christian. You can be a member of any faith. But having said that, there were some ancient Rose Cross chapters functioning in India, especially the TI chapter in Calcutta, the members of which were Christian, and they wished to retain that Christian exclusivity. So in all fairness to them, they were allowed to retain that. So I think we must be, as Freemasons, broad-minded and accept these minor variations. There is no point in trying to impose some majoritarian view on these things. So what is majoritarian in this country may not be majoritarian in other countries. So the beauty of Masonry, it's a beautiful canvas. It's a mosaic with various pieces. Each piece adds luster to it. I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah, most worshipful. We have Brother Jeff Gill who has a question. Jeff, please unmute yourself.
Good evening, Bharat, and thank you again for another inspiring lecture. Hi. Bharat, I was just referring back to when you were discussing the Royal and Select Masters. I don't recall you discussing the degree of the Excellent Master, which, although not worked in England, is worked as part of the degree within Scotland.
True. You're absolutely right. The Excellent Master's degree is part of the Scottish Royal Arch, Supreme Grand Royal Arch Chapter of Scotland. They govern that. And in fact, it's one of the prerequisites to being exalted in the Royal Arch Chapter. That particular sequence starts off with you being advanced as a Mark Mason. The second step is being made an Excellent Master, which is that missing ceremony. And thereafter, you become a Royal Arch Companion. Now, the Excellent Master's degree is, again, one of those really fine degrees in Masonry. It's also known as passing the veil ceremony. And it's from that ceremony, which used to be worked in England not too long ago, and for some weird reason is no longer worked in most parts of England and also in most parts of India. So that particular degree is the one which gives you an explanation of the grip of a Royal Archmason. It also gives you the reason for the colors of the robes or the principles in the Royal Arch chapter. It also explains to you the password and the meaning of the password that is entrusted by the principal sojourner to the candidate for exaltation, which is normally not dealt with. But this is the degree which talks about all that. So it's very sad that this beautiful degree has been kind of removed from the Masonic experience of a lot of the brethren. They are the worse for it. They are the poorer for it. So, in fact, I have been advocating introduction of this degree in the Mark Masonic and Supreme Royal chapter of India. But it's been falling in deaf ears for the last 10 years. Let's see. Hopefully it'll change. But Jeff, you know how beautiful it is.
I do indeed. And thank you for that. Thank you again, Bharat. Lovely lecture.
Thank you, Jeff.
Most worshipful, we have Most Worshipful Brother Thomas Jackson, who sent us a message. I'll read out his message. It says, Most Worshipful Brother Bharat, thank you all for the hard work which you have put in to making this presentation so informative. I send my very best wishes to all of you in these difficult times. Continue to enjoy your Allied Masonry. Thomas Jackson.
Thank you, Most Worshipful Thomas Jackson. And we reciprocate your kind sentiments. Please take our good wishes to each and every member of the order in England and Wales and its districts and councils overseas, which is our mother council. We are very happy to be a daughter council.
Brethren, are there any more questions? Otherwise, we'll call it a day. We're 2 minutes behind schedule. Close time.
Most Worshipful Brother Bharat, if I may, just on behalf of the representatives of the orders at Mark Mason's Hall, thank you for the invitation to join you today and for a very interesting and informative lecture. The fact that you had over 200 people joining today underlines my belief that there's a great interest in the progressive orders, and I'm sure everyone goes away feeling much more informed about each of those orders based on your lecture today. So thank you very much. We're delighted to join you. We send you our warm fraternal greetings and hope it's not too long before we can join with you and celebrate all of our orders again in London and in India.
Thank you, Right Worshipful Brian Williams, for those encouraging words and words of appreciation. We are always with you. You can count on us to be together with all our good Masonic thoughts.
I must add to it, Most Worshipful, I must thank Right Worshipful Brother Ryan Williams for the excellent support and cooperation. He's in fact circulated tonight's webinar to most of his members. So, and we've had as many as 300 registrations plus, thanks to him.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. My dear brethren, thank you all once again for being with us. And as I said earlier, stay safe, stay happy, and we look forward to seeing each and every one of you not too far from now. Uma, thank you very much for all the support.
You're welcome.
Vikram, Balakrishna, and Rinesh, thank you also for supporting Uma.
Pleasure.
And this would have been possible. And Uma did all the work as far as the presentation is concerned. Thank you once again, Uma.